Welcome everyone to Coffee, Chicks, and Comics. I am your host, Nisha Mars. I'm here with my co-host Jesse Geist and our drop-in co-host, Mr. Leon C. Hall. And we are here for Surprising Saturday. So we don't know who's gonna drop by and we don't know what the topics are. Everything's gonna be a mystery as always. But let's do this.
All
So
right.
good morning, guys.
I really
Good
like that
morning.
intro music.
Good morning.
Yeah, we kicked
Got
it off with
that got
con
me.
season, and we're going to continue with con season as our boy Ricky is over in Indiana right now hosting the Indiana Comic Convention. Um, and he's also doing his crystals, but he has lots of our new books. He has lots of new artwork. So definitely stop by if you're in the Indiana area. Um, and he'll be there till Sunday. So he started yesterday, and he said there was a couple, but not too much. So Saturday's always the maniac day for Comic Cons. It's usually the day where you see like thousands and thousands of people, and you can't remember if it's
Hmm.
morning or afternoon because you're not seeing sunlight. You're literally stuck in a warehouse of some sort with no windows and no relatively time of the outside world unless you're actually looking at your watch, but you're absorbing everything that there is around con, which is fun. So
It's
Leonce,
true.
what is your favorite part of going to Comic Cons?
That's like asking me what my favorite child is. Um, there's so much. There's so much. There's so much to love. Um, I'm in Texas, and I've gone to Comic Palooza here. I've gone to San Antonio Comic Con and Car Show. I have not made it to Dallas's comic convention yet. I'd like to make that happen sometime in 2025. Um, Let me see. Ah, it's hard, man. It's hard,
They're
and
just
bear in
that
mind,
good.
it is because there's so much. There's so much good stuff. There's
Hmm.
collectibles, and there's comic books, and there's vendors. There's independent creators. There's food. There's panels. There are celebrities and autographs, and there's gaming. There's music. Hell, at Comic Palooza last year, there was like a pro wrestling event, like on one of
Yeah.
the nights. There is so much to love. So it's hard for me to choose what my favorite um part is. I mean, that is, and you got to bear in mind that for the last few years, I had been going as a fan, and as of last year, I had a chance to kind of operate from the other side of the table. So the experience was a little bit different. Like
Yeah.
had before last summer, if you would have asked me what my favorite part of a comic convention was, I probably would have said attendees in their cosplay. That would have been my favorite part. I mean, and again, that's edging out celebrity appearances and panel talks and collectibles and vendors by a nose, by a hair. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
all of it is so dope. But now, as of last year, um, I don't know. Maybe my favorite part of comic conventions being on the other side of the table, on the vendor side of the table, getting a chance to talk to people about the things that we create. Like I love watching folks' eyebrows raise. I love watching them kind of give you your attention when they're investigating. When folks are coming across 50/50 comics on the table and are not sure what any of this is, and you get a chance to engage them, to watch those roots just kind of sink in, and people be like, "Oh, okay, I want to pay attention to this." Like that is such a empowering feeling, like it's hard to describe. Hell, first and foremost, it's such an unfair question. I hate what's your favorite question. Nah, it's
We're
not fair.
putting you on the spot.
Well, hell, there's gonna be lots of spots because I don't. It is hard for me to tell. In the interest of answering the question, I'm going to say the interaction.
Mm.
So
That's
you can
fair.
take that however you want to take it. You asked me
Yeah.
a super broad question. It was impossible for me to answer. I'll give you a super broad answer. There
Yeah.
you go.
Like it's a nice umbrella. It just kind of like
It is a nice
encapsulates all
umbrella.
of it. Yeah.
Because like you stated, you're interacting both now as a vendor, but you're also interacting as a fan. So yeah, I mean, I will take that. I actually will take that. So,
Good. I like
I
it.
mean,
Yeah.
for me, my favorite parts are, of course, has always been the dressing up, the cosplay part of it. I love how inventive and artistic people get with their costumes. Like, there's costumes out here that one don't have a costume originally, so to actually go and make all of
Make it.
those things. And like I used to watch Face Off growing up. So then going to cons and seeing people make a dragon suit or make an entire Transformer outfit or make
Mhm.
their favorite fantasy character from whatever game that they're into come to life. It's just like, and putting like all of that skill into it. And even the kids, like I saw a kid, he was maybe 10 or 11 last year, and he built a Pikachu.
Mm,
Like
That's awesome.
out of cardboard, and he was wearing it, and it was freaking awesome. Like it looked like a realistic Pikachu, and Pikachu's not a very boxy looking character. It's more circles and everything else. But the way he built this character, and it looked like he can like close up and turn into the ball. It was crazy. Like that's the unique part of it. So it's almost like a large interactive art
Mhm.
gallery
Yeah.
in a way.
I'm gonna say my favorite part is talking with all the vendors. I think that's my favorite part. I like going like I guess you don't get as much exposure like you do when you're at a con, like when you're at a con. So you get to see all these cool, like us, like you get to see like indie comic creators where you're like, wow, that's really cool. Like I bought comic books and I started to buy like the whole series because of the one comic book that I found at, because this one vendor was selling just that one book. And then I ended up just falling in love with it. And you don't really get that same type of interaction anywhere else. And it's just such a unique and cool experience to be with a lot of other people that have similar interests to you, and you can like completely nerd out with them and they're like, yes, that's exactly how I feel, and you're like, oh, it's kin.
yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
it. The
Yeah.
interaction.
Yeah, exactly. The umbrella.
So, Leon, to come back to us, you are our co-owner and chief editor and writer of Trapper and writer of Table 23 and all around, uh, just our person that keeps our imaginations writing,
Mm.
right? So,
I
but you
listen.
also do
Good
that
question.
in reality, like you do that in real life as a English teacher. So let's dive right in as your surprising Sunday and being in the spotlight for our first show. Um, yeah, I mean, so one, what do you teach? Two, what do you like about teaching? Three, what don't you like about teaching?
One. What do I teach? I teach gremlins.
Okay, it looks like we have a new surprise drop in. Let's find out who it is. I don't know what happened. Like somebody joined and it kicked everything out. I don't know what happened. But Leon's, please proceed with answering your question.
Okay. So I teach eighth grade English here in Texas. Um, um, what do I like about teaching? I've always been a curious sort, and it was specifically middle school teachers. Honestly, oddly enough, there was a math teacher that I had for seventh and eighth grade who really kind of turned some of the screws on my own thinking machine. Um, so yeah, man, like trying to inspire and coach and facilitate young people to be curious and to think deeper than they have before. That's fun for me. I enjoy that. I enjoy that engagement. Um, what do I not like about teaching? the salary, the goddamn salary. Can I curse? Can we curse on here?
You
Can we
can
curse?
curse on here.
Can curse? All right. So that the goddamn salary is just awful. But nah, man. Like we all know about the American education, the American attitude towards public education, especially now, it's kind of being chewed up. Um, but apart from all those things, there are moments in class where young people understand things that they did not understand before, and those are fun. Those are inspiring moments, and that kind of keeps me doing it for as long as this old body will let me. Um, but yeah, I used to be a math teacher when I first started in education, and I did that because I wanted to number one, kind of foster the love for STEM fields and for mathematics, and kind of alleviate the whole math anxiety that
Hmm.
people tend to inherit. Um, and I didn't work out quite the way I wanted it to. And so when I returned to teaching, I said I would do it in my native language. That is to say that as a writer and as a reader. So I decided to teach English. Um, so yeah, it has been an adventure ever since. As you know, teaching middle school is by nature. Um, and yeah, there's been a lot to love. There have been, of course, bumps in the road or some off notes, but that's with everything. Um, I know how much I love reading. I know how much I love writing, especially, and um, I try to include that enthusiasm, that dedication to the craft in the
Mhm.
exploration of the objectives and ideas that we cover in class. So yeah, man. More often than not, we have a good time. Every day is work, but more often than not, we have a good time.
Nice. Do
Nice.
you like when inspiration strikes, do you usually have like a notepad and a pen that you carry around with you so you can like write stuff all the time?
Oh yeah, and the thing is, I was never a journaler. Um, I am um, one shake of a lamb's tail from 50, and I first started like journaling, like writing things down and
Hmm.
collecting those things in one space. Like maybe when I turned 40 years old, like that was the first time I ever honestly journaled or like collected my thoughts. Before then, it would either roll around in my head all the time to the point where I had no choice but to remember it, or I just grab whatever was lying around and write things down. So to this day, over 4 addresses in Texas, um, there have to be like envelopes and napkins and old receipts that have all kinds of genius ideas on them. I can't lay hand on them to save my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, that to say that journaling is fairly new for me, but that is what I do. I have 2 journals actually that I keep with me at school. One is specifically for things that I want to do in class. The other one is for my creative ideas. Um, yeah, I have 2 really, really big ideas that I would love to flesh out and one day publish under the 50/50 banner. Um, but yeah, I do have a journal that I keep with me to make sure that I don't lose any good ideas.
What do you say to the kid that wants to write but doesn't know how to get started? How do you navigate them into that field of, like, they say, "Hey, Mr. Hall, I got an idea for a character, and it's about an apple, and they're like in outer space or whatever." They have so many ideas because it's like what I learned with working with a lot of our lunch bunches and fourth, fifth, and sixth graders is that their imagination is so outside the box that trying to tailor it into one particular focus or getting it to make sense in one particular concept has always been one of those really hard. And you
Hmm.
can't do it in 4 weeks, and you're only seeing them one time a week. So for a person that
Hmm.
sees them every day, what do you have? Like, what's that one? How do you get them to, all right, this is what we're going to focus on? How you get that one topic, at least so they can start it and finish it?
That's 2 different answers. When it comes to formal writing, writing, essays and things that are supposed to be serving a specific purpose, then there's some structure that we can give them. There's some skeletons we can give them for them to be able to build around. Um, we just got finished writing an argumentative text, an argumentative essay in class, and we kind of gave them a little bit of a roadmap to help students figure out how to get from the idea that they have to the conclusion that they want to reach. So there's some signposts that we can give them along the way. When it comes to creative writing, I think the most important thing for creative writers is to write. Just write. And for there was a writing group at my school that we had for a while. Shout out to Tori Hinton. She took that over for one of our retiring teachers. And honestly, for me, because I'd been doing it for a while, but I just didn't have the time. And she has a degree in creative writing. One of the great things that she would often tell her students was, no matter what your idea is, write it the first time, and it won't be the last time you write about it. Right? You want to get that idea from in your head to on the paper. That's the most important part. Once it's out, then you can, shape it, you can polish it, you can cut it the way you need to. Like, you can't put a diamond or an emerald into a ring until you get it out of the ground first. And that, for creative writers, is the most important thing, getting it out of the ground first. So if a kid comes to you with an idea about Apple, let's explore that. First things first, get that thing down. And especially for new writers, I try to make sure that these big nebulous ideas start with a root. Like, you need some place to start with. So especially in that writing group, I suggested this writing exercise I like to do, a thing called 7-sentence stories, right? Tell your story in 7 short sentences, like from beginning to end. 7 short little. If you can do that, then you can add details to those sentences, and you turn them into a paragraph. Those paragraphs turn into a story by themselves. For younger readers, for younger writers, I dare say start them off with 4 sentences. If you can tell that story in 4 sentences, then you've given yourself your signposts, your tent poles, if you will, that will give you where you are starting, the point you're writing to, the next point you're writing to, and how you begin. Right? All of this can be really, really complex. I am a writer because I am a ruthless overthinker. I think way too much about everything. And so if you don't kind of trim some of that fat, man, I will sit here and stare at my navel until the sky falls. So I need, in order to give myself some structure and some direction. And again, there was a time where, especially during teaching, again, I never journaled before. So especially while I was teaching, I'd have these ideas and they would float away from me by the time I was done. By the time I was home, I could actually chronicle them. So I started telling myself, man, just tell it in short bursts. If you can do it in these short sentences, get the gist of it, you can always go back and fix it. Right now, I have 12 very short stories. Again, 7-sentence stories. That if I wanted to build them out, I could. I did 2 of them and set up these little 6-page scripts. Like, if somebody wanted to draw those things, I got that. Like, it's already ready already. One of the things I've talked about for a long time is trying to do like an anthology series where we can tell these short stories. Ideas like Spider-Man began in, Tales, Amazing Tales, where it was just 1 story out of 3 or 4 that was in 1 book. And I think that it is fun to throw a lot of, characters at the wall and see who sticks. But anyway, all that was said to say that for new writers, I'd say start simple, and have a clear idea about where you're going. Again, for older writers, 7 sentences is pretty good. For younger writers, maybe 3 or 4 sentences to give you an idea of where it is you're starting and where it is you are headed. That was a very long-winded answer. I apologize. Words are all I
No,
have.
that was great. You want to know why? Because I think in the process of like me trying to figure out how to write Evelyn's story, as someone who like has all of these, like, I just like my imagination just keeps running like all the time. And so I write stuff down, but I don't know how to take it from just that one thing that I thought of. And like you saying, like, you explaining that just kind of like helped it click. Like, oh, I don't really need to have like this long friggin' like huge novel already created. I can just have 7 sentences and that's completely okay to start. So now
Yeah,
I feel like I can actually accomplish something.
Yeah, we've been doing that kind of back and forth on that
Yeah.
development side. Matter of fact, I mean to check in with you. But yeah, the it is very easy to be overwhelmed by it all. Very easy. And I think that narrowing the focus helps to make sure that we don't swerve from lane to lane. You know what I'm saying? It helps to
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. That was like super helpful.
I'm pleased. Happy to be here, sir.
So educational and fictional world. Education really does not exist. I mean, we see it in Harry Potter. You see it in Spider-Man a little bit, like in the comic. You don't see it, you don't, or in the animated versions of Spider-Man. You didn't see it too much in the actual comic book of Spider-Man.
As
But
in like Peter Parker in class.
yeah, like you don't see him go to school, go to class, graduate, get a whole education. I mean, I maybe I missed those issues. Like the ones that I picked up, I definitely didn't see that. I always saw him
I
saving everything and fighting things, but I've never seen him actually physically in class, which is kind of how I've seen him like in the movies and in the animated version of Spider-Man, but not in the actual comic book. So, like I said, maybe I missed those issues. If you're ready to school me, I'm ready to listen because I
oh
see face expressions going on here. But the purpose of the question is how do you depict education when it comes to educating? Because a lot of our kids pick up on, and they, you know, when you go to school, especially during that age range, you kind of want your life to depict a lot of what you see in the fictional world. Like we grew up on like Dawson's Creek and Pokemon and other stuff. So we kind of take that into our everyday life. So, what do
mm.
you say about the educational purposes or principles that they have in some of our animated society that we see today?
First thing, um, make it laugh. I'm not really a Spider-Man fan. That really happened. But the thing is, it was of the daily comics that were in the Times-Picayune newspaper. Shout out to New Orleans, Louisiana. Spider-Man was one of the more action-oriented comics. That and Prince Valiant was one of the action comics that were in the daily newspaper. And this was I love telling my students that there was a time where Spider-Man comics could only be consumed like 3 panels at a time. You know,
Hmm.
um, maybe 4 on a good day. Um, but even then, like I enjoyed that style of writing and the style of writing and action. Um, so yeah, there were the whole root of Spider-Man was that he was a nerd, he was an outcast, he was a misfit. Like he was absolutely not a cool kid at his
Mhm.
school, and he got bullied, and he was brilliant. Like he had a mind that was kind of attuned to math and science, and he was STEM kids before STEM kids were STEM kids. So yeah, there have been sequences, there have been stories that have centered on his hallway experience or his classroom experience and how he is so pushed around at school and so ignored by these girls, but then he'll go out and save New York City, later that evening.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, there are certainly depictions of Spider-Man in school. Now, um, to your question, if I'm being real, I wouldn't want to read a comic about what happens in middle school classrooms either. Like it's not. It
Doesn't
is
sound
work.
very nice, does it?
It is work. It is a play. I'll tell you what it is, man. It's an interesting thing. Again, these middle grades, these early teenage years, young people are building who they're going to be. They're deciding what type of person they're going to be. In order to do that, they have to try on several different personalities, trying to find the one that fits. So in the course of 2 weeks, you will meet 12 different people sitting in the same chair in the same class period, because they're trying to figure it out. I was just marveling at one of our seventh graders. Last year, she was bright and bubbly, and she talked too much, and she was so egregious. You know what I'm saying? I'm not. She was so gregarious, very effervescent, and now she's a sullen, sulky, angsty seventh grade goblin. See that evolution, and I know that when we inherit her next year in eighth grade, she'll be completely different. She'll likely be the
Mhm.
pretty princess version of who she is. You know what I'm saying? Obsessed with makeup and fashion and how she looks, and always opening her little compact and before class starts. All that was said to say that few of our students have found the personality or the persona that fits them in the way that they feel native. Um,
Mhm.
there's a lot of experimentation. There's a lot of confusion, And the toughest part about these middle grades is that they now know more than they did when they were in 5th grade. So they feel like they've got at least a hand on the wheel. And yet they are in this very young space where there's so much that they don't know. And the not knowing kind of feels like an insecurity to them. And we have to remind young people that, it's okay to not know. It's okay to fail. Like this building is made for the answering of questions. We don't expect you to know it coming in, right?
Right.
And there is there's that constant battle going on with them. Like they know so much more than they did, but they still don't know enough that they need to know. So it's shaky. The personality thing is shaky. The blossoming, the growing, the growth spurts that everybody is going through, like that is all of that uneasiness and unsteadiness, right? We all have to go through it. It's the only way to go from a completely helpless child to a self-sufficient adult. It is a rocky course. And again, the only way that I survived to this point is because of the people who invested in me, especially in those rocky areas. I look at these kids every day and I wonder to myself, how did my mama not leave me on the side of the road? Like, how did I make it past 8th grade alive? If she had fed me to the wolves, looking back at me like, yep, I understand, man. Like, I get it. But that said, you have to walk a fine line when it comes to creativity, where we want to be able to relate to the things that we take in, that we used to occupy our minds. We want it to look familiar in one aspect, but we also these things that occupy our minds because we want to depart from where we always are. The cube of reality that physics gives us, those are the rules that we have to play by. And I do the writing that I do. I enjoy fiction and I enjoy sci-fi and I enjoy fantasy because it allows us to operate outside that cube. And I think the only way that that cube expands is by operating outside that cube, by imagining things, by trying to see what all we can accomplish. You know what I'm saying? Trying to push the limits. You know what I mean? I was just watching a YouTube video recently about a guy who read like the predictions of what would be considered futurists or science fiction writers in the in 1920. Like, what will life be like in 100 years? And there are some predictions that are pretty spot on. There are some that are absolutely ridiculous. You know what I mean? Because it takes again, it takes the entertaining the absurd to stretch our reality towards that. So when I'm talking about writing for middle grades or young people taking in entertainment, there's a very fine balance that you got to strike between what we know and what we can play with in our imagination, what we can chew in our minds. That said, life inside of an 8th grade classroom, like the idea for Table 23 came to me because I wanted my students to be able to read some of the stuff that I write, on a playful level. I want something that was a bit lighter. And even in that, like, this is year 14 for me now, teaching 8th grade. I use maybe 0.00001% of my experiences in the classroom. Some of the funny things that kids have said to me, some of the funny things I've seen happen in hallways or whatever, because the vast majority of it is work. Like it's a process and it's a slog, and it can be frustrating, and it can take a lot of energy and a lot of focus to be able to get through. So that sort of stuff is not exactly fun, not all the time anyway. So yeah, man, like there's a balance that you got to strike, and being able to strike it effectively is the gift of the art, and that is the thing that we try to work toward. So yeah, you don't want to read about like what happened in class yesterday. I had to scold 3 out of 6 class periods because we're trying to go get through a text, and they're being teenagers, they're being children, they're being distracted and unfocused, and you got to go in knowing that you signed on for some of that. But like after a minute, like, geez, fam, come on, can we get it done? Anyway, I'm not here to complain about work. It's a Saturday and it's a beautiful day outside. I'm not getting to that.
Well, as you're experiencing the beautiful day outside, we're experiencing the snow and cold up here. So the north is nasty. The north is
It's
nasty
so
right now.
cold. It's ridiculous.
Nah.
But
Madame,
with all that being said, our time is now up. And Leonce, we thank you again for dropping by and sharing your words of wisdom, giving us some insight into comics and education and not education and re-education and writing and yeah,
Imagination. If there's
Mhm.
imagination.
anything, if there's any word that I can leave anybody with, it's imagination. If any of this has any value, I want it to inspire. I want it to feed your imagination. I talk often with my students, and we all recognize that the world that we live in is not exactly the optimum version of how reality should look. Um, and I say to them that these silly stories that I write are done so that you can imagine things that are right now as it is, right? It's so that
Hmm.
we can imagine a new world, one that is better than this. It's the only thing that gets us from where we are to where we want to go, is being able to conceive of it first. That takes imagination, and I write stories that hopefully fuel imaginations. So that's the parting shot.
I like that.
Well, you heard it. Everybody go into your Saturday with imagination. And we'll catch you next time. It's your host signing off.
Fun
Bye,
stuff.
guys.
Bye.